My name is Juliane Sauer, and together with my colleague Sibylla Martinelli, we will present you everything you need to know about the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Fellowships. Both of us are the Swiss national contact points for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions. This is today's outline. I will briefly explain you the setup of this webinar and then give you a short introduction on the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions and, as we are talking from a Swiss perspective, also about the Swiss statutes towards Horizon 2020. My colleague Sibylla Martinelli will then explain to you the details on the Marie Skłodowska-Curie individual fellowships. I will provide you with further information, and at the end of this webinar you will have the possibility to ask your questions. We will answer them in a chat session. Please ask your questions already during the webinar. We will answer them at the end. This is the setup of this webinar. In the big window, you will always see the current presentation slides. In the small window in the upper right-hand corner, you will see a photo of the current speaker. And just below, there's the chat for questions that I mentioned. It will be moderated by my colleague Laure Torrent. And again, I repeat, please ask your questions during the presentation. We will collect them and provide you with the answers later on. For your information, this webinar is recorded. You will receive a follow-up email with a presentation in PDF format and the link to our YouTube channel so that you can always watch and listen to this webinar later on again. This is now the brief introduction. Switzerland is currently partially associated to the EU Research Framework Programme Horizon 2020. This means Horizon 2020 has three pillars: societal challenges, industrial leadership, and excellent science. The Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, of which the individual fellowships are today's focus, are part of the excellent science pillar, and this pillar is currently, at least until the end of 2016, associated to Horizon 2020. That means, in case you wish to come to Switzerland with an individual fellowship or in case you're based here, you're fully eligible to apply currently. Switzerland is currently eligible for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions. This status will be at least until the end of 2016. Afterwards, we do not yet know. It means that our message for you is submit now for a proposal in case you're eligible. In case this shouldn't turn out this year, you can always reapply next year. Afterwards, we simply don't know yet if Switzerland will continue to be partially associated, fully associated, or not associated. So submit now. Marie Skłodowska-Curie was a very famous researcher, a brilliant researcher. She was also a mobile researcher. She once said, "After all, science is essentially international, and it is only through lack of the historical sense that national qualities have been attributed to it." Marie Skłodowska-Curie moved from Poland to France, and she was the namesake of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions of the European Commission. The general aims of these actions: to attract and retain research talent in Europe and to Europe, to promote sustainable career development in research and innovation, to ensure excellent and innovative research training, and to develop innovative training schemes. Brain gain and brain circulation are absolutely important for the European research landscape. The general features of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions: the overall budget throughout Horizon 2020 is more than 6 billion euro. This is divided into several biannual work programs. Every work program for 1 year has 9 calls, covering approximately 1.57 billion euros. The Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions follow a bottom-up approach, and that means there are no predefined thematic topics. In case your research is so new that it does not yet have an own discipline, or in case it is intradisciplinary, this is a good thing for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions. Any type of research topic can be submitted here. But physical mobility is a key requirement. Keep in mind, Marie Skłodowska-Curie, the namesake of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, she was a mobile researcher. She moved from Poland to France, and this is why they said mobility is so important. Physical mobility for researchers is important in a world of global research. The Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions are open to researchers or staff of any nationality. Your passport is not important, and they are open to all domains of research and innovation. Overall, there are 5 different actions. For example, the Researchers' Night, you might have heard of it. It's more a promotional event for research. There are 3 host-driven actions. That means universities or any research organization who carry out research can apply for the types of RISE, IT and Co-Fund. But today, we will focus on the individual-driven actions, the individual fellowships. Their scope. With the Marie Curie individual fellowships, individual transnational fellowships are awarded to the best and the most promising experienced researchers. What an experienced researcher is, I will explain to you later. The objectives: to enhance the creative and innovative potential of experienced researchers of any nationality at postdoctoral level and even beyond. And, of course, they shall provide opportunities to acquire new knowledge by working on research projects in a European context or even outside Europe. Their impact shall be to strengthen the contact network of the researcher and the host organization, and to release the full potential of researchers and catalyze significant development in their careers in either the academic or the non-academic sector, or even both. This leads to the following. Such an individual fellowship is not carried out all on your own, but you have to search for a suitable host institution. Such a host institution has to be active in research and research training. Typically, that's a university, of course, but it can be as well an institution in the public or private, as a public or private research institute. It could be an international European interest organization or an international organization, the CERN, for example, or the WHO. It could also be an industry-related host institution, for example, an SME carrying out research or a bigger research company. In case you want to apply for a Marie Skłodowska-Curie individual fellowship, you have to fulfill 2 key requirements. The first one, ask yourself if you are an eligible researcher in terms of experienced. Experienced researcher, that's an EU Commission term, and it means you have to either hold your PhD or you have to have at least 4 years of research experience at the relevant deadline for the submission of proposals. The relevant deadline, in this case for this call, is September the 10th of this year. Holding a PhD at this date means you have to fulfill all the requirements of your institution where you carry out the PhD. If that should mean, in your case, that your university also asks you to have your PhD published, you have this to have done on the date, at least on the date of the deadline. The 4 years of research experience are counted as full-time research experience, the full-time equivalent. This means if you have been active in the last 8 years, but 50%, that counts as well. There are no exceptions to these rules. If you should be awarded your PhD 1 week or even 1 day only after the deadline, you are not eligible for this year's call. This is the first rule. The second rule is the so-called mobility rule. We talked about the mobility, the physical mobility, that's a requirement. The mobility rule says the researchers shall not have resided or carried out their main activity in the country of their future host organization for more than 12 months in the 3 years prior to the reference date. The reference date, again, for this call is 10th of September. And the main activity, that could be, for example, that you were active in research, working on your PhD, or it could be as well parental leave or whatever your main activity actually was. You cannot have been for more than 12 months in the past year, 3 years prior to the reference date in the country of your future host organization. The Commission carries out an eligibility check before actually evaluating the content of your proposal. In case there's Welcome back, everyone. We apologize sincerely for this technical problem. We hope you are still with us. I will continue with explaining once again the mobility rule. As I said, there are two requirements. The first one is your level of experience. The second one is the physical mobility that is important. The researchers shall not have resided or carried out their main activity in the country of the future host organization for more than 12 months in the 3 years prior to the reference date. The reference date is again the deadline of this call for proposals, September 10th of this year. And the country of your future host organization, you should not have been there for more than 12 months in the 3 years prior to the deadline. This is accumulated. If there have been several stays, they will all be counted together. The Commission counts the days when they check for the eligibility. That means if you have been only 1 week more or even 1 day more than these 12 months in the country of your future host organization, you're not eligible, and there are no exceptions. However, we know of many cases where a researcher is already for a couple of months, less than these 12 months in the country of the future host, or even already at the future host institution. You're perfectly eligible, and this is not a disadvantage. Talking about host institution, yes, you have to search for your own host institution. The national contact points typically cannot help you with that, but we would advise you to search already for a good contact now. You have to have one main host organization, but you can also carry out secondments. That means going to additional host or institutions. However, these have to already be very clearly justified and described in the part B of your proposal, meaning in your proposal, you have to explain why and where you wish to go, what you will do there. The transfer of knowledge, TOK, should contribute significantly to the impact of your fellowship. It has to make sense in the research and training for you. This could be a single period or be divided into several shorter mobility periods. In case it makes sense for your research project and your training, it can also be at more than one partner organization. It could be to an institution in the same country or to another country, and it could be in the same sector. If you are at a university, you could go to another university or to somebody in the industry, for example. The duration is defined. In case you have a shorter fellowship of 18 months, up to 18 months, you could have a maximum duration of the secondments of 3 months. In case your fellowship is longer than 18 months, you can go even up to 6 months. Again, this makes sense. You have to check beforehand if this makes sense for your research and training project. Now, my colleague Sibylla Martinelli will explain to you the 2 types of individual fellowships and all the details.
Good morning also from my side. We are going to have a closer look at the individual fellowships now. There are basically 2 types of individual fellowships. On the one hand, there is the European Fellowship for fellows coming to or moving within Europe. And on the other hand, there is the Global Fellowship for fellows from Europe. So please excuse this second technical problem. We will continue. So as I said, there are basically 2 types of global fellowships. There's on the one hand the European Fellowship for fellows coming to or moving within Europe, and on the other hand there is the Global Fellowship for fellows from Europe going to third countries and returning to Europe. I'm going to explain you these 2 types of fellowships in a bit more detail now. So first of all, I would like to point your attention to, I have to be able to move the slide. Okay. I'm going to point your attention to the fact that the 2015 call for European Fellowship proposals has a reserved budget of 186 million euro, and the call is currently open and has a deadline on 10th of September this year. To be eligible for a standard European fellowship, the researcher must be a so-called experienced researcher, which means she or he must, at the deadline for the submission of proposals, be in possession of a doctoral degree or have at least 4 years of full-time equivalent research experience, as my colleague Juliane explained you before. The researcher may be of any nationality, but must move or have moved from any country to the member state or associated country where the beneficiary is located. The researcher must comply with the mobility rule, which was also explained to you by Juliane Sauer. This mobility rule says that the researcher must not have resided or carried out the main activity in the country of the host organization for more than 12 months in the 3 years prior to the deadline for submission of proposals. Researchers can apply for funding for 12 to 24 months. The project proposals are submitted by the host organization in liaison with the researcher. The host organization is represented by the supervisor, and proposals for individual fellowships involve a single host organization established in a member state or associated country. The beneficiary is the host organization that recruits the experienced researcher under the conditions established in the grant agreement and ensures through appointment of a supervisor the necessary training of the researcher. The supervisor will legally act in the name of the organization until the grant preparation phase. And the beneficiary is the one who signs the grant agreement, receives funding, claims costs, and takes complete responsibility for executing the proposal. The project should be written by the experienced researcher. It should have realistic and well-defined objectives in terms of career advancement, for example, by attaining a leading independent position or resuming a research career after break. The project should contain a concrete plan of training through research for 12 to 24 months at the host organization's premises under the direct supervision of the supervisor. Typical training activities may include, for example, primarily it is training through research, but also hands-on training activities for developing scientific skills like, for example, new techniques or instruments, and also transferable skills like proposal preparation to request funding or patent applications or, for example, management of IPR, action management, task coordination, etc. For a standard European fellowship that does not involve career restart or reintegration, researchers fulfilling all eligibility conditions may apply for one of the 8 scientific panels according to the topic of their research proposal. These panels are chemistry, social sciences and humanities, economic sciences, information science and engineering, environment and geosciences, life sciences, mathematics, and physics. During the evaluation, each scientific panel will have a separate ranking list. The Career Restart panel is a multidisciplinary panel of the European Fellowships which provides financial support to individual researchers who want to resume research in Europe after a career break. For example, after a parental leave or after working outside research for a while. The applicant will have to indicate at submission stage in which of the 8 scientific areas their proposal best fits in order to have the optimal expert allocation. And following evaluation, there will be one ranked list for all Career Restart panel proposals. Researchers applying within this panel can be of any nationality, but the beneficiary must be located in a member state or associated country. To be eligible for this panel, the researcher must move or have moved from any country to the member state or associated country where the beneficiary is located. The Career Restart panel mobility rule is a bit different than the general mobility rule, and it says that the researcher must not have resided or carried out the main activity in the country of his or her host organization for more than 36 months in the 5 years immediately prior to the deadline for submission of the proposals. And last but not least, to be eligible for this panel, the researcher must have undertaken a career break in research. He or she must not have been active in research for at least 12 months prior to the deadline for submission of proposals. There is another panel, the so-called reintegration panel. It is, again, a multidisciplinary panel of the European fellowships dedicated to researchers who want to return and reintegrate in a longer-term research position in Europe. Also here, the applicant must indicate at submission stage in which of the 8 scientific areas his or her proposal best fits, in order to have the optimal expert allocation. And also here, there will be one ranked list for all reintegration panel proposals following evaluation. To be eligible for this panel, the researchers must not have not only be an experienced researcher, but also a national or long-term resident of the member state or associated country in Europe. So here is a difference to the standard European fellowship and the career restart panel. Here, nationality of the researchers is taken into account. And the beneficiary must be located in an EU member state or associated country. The researcher must move or have moved from a third country to a member state or associated country where the beneficiary is located. And also there is another than the general mobility rule. It is the research reintegration mobility rule. It says that the researcher must not have resided or carried out the main activity in the country of the host organization for more than 36 months in the 5 years prior to the deadline. So the second type of individual fellowships is so-called global fellowship. Also here, call is open now with a deadline on 10th of September 2015. There's a reserved budget for this 2015 call of 27 million euro. Global fellowships are composed of an outgoing phase during which the researcher undertakes a secondment to a partner organization in a third country, and a mandatory 12-month return period to a host organization located in a member state or associated country. The researcher must be an experienced researcher, again, and he or she must be a national or long-term resident of an EU member state or associated country. Long-term residents are researchers who spent a period of full-time research activity of at least 5 consecutive years in one or more member states or associated countries. The researcher must move or have moved from any country to the partner organization located in a third country, and the researcher must comply with the mobility rule that says that he or she must not have resided or carried out the main activity in the third country where the initial outgoing phase takes place for more than 12 months in the 3 years immediately prior to the deadline. So it is the third country that has to comply with the mobility rule. The partner organization must be situated in a third country and is the entity where the initial compulsory outgoing phase takes place. So, in the global fellowship, the experienced researcher applies together with a host institution that is located in a member state or associated country for a research project, and this research project has an initial outgoing phase to a partner organization in a third country. The research is recruited by the host institution in the EU member state or associated country, and the host institution is also the one who appoints the supervisor. This is different in the global fellowships compared to the European fellowship. The partner organization in the third country nominates a supervisor for the experienced researcher, and the partner organization has to provide a letter of commitment. And also, the partner organization does not sign grant agreement or does not recruit the researcher and does not directly claim costs. So, as for the European fellowship, the project should be written by the experienced researcher. It should have realistic and well-defined objectives in terms of career advancement, and the project should contain also concrete plan of training through research, and this should be for 12 to 24 months. Yeah, under the direct supervision of the supervisor. Typical training activities are the same as in the European Fellowship. There is a focus on the transfer of knowledge in this global fellowship that is more prominent than in the European Fellowship. And as for the standard European Fellowship, in the global fellowships, researchers who fulfill the eligibility conditions can apply for one of the 8 scientific panels. And these panels are according to the topic of their research proposals. The panels are the same as in the standard European Fellowship. And also during the evaluation, each scientific panel will have a separate ranking list. One word to the letter of commitment which partner organizations need to provide in the global fellowships. This letter of commitment must demonstrate the real and active participation in the proposed action, and it must confirm the partner organization's precise role that is already clearly described in the proposal. There is no template available. The letter should be up to date, which means it should be issued after the call publication date. It should include a header or a stamp to be easily recognized as coming from a specific institution, and it should be signed by the legal representative or by someone with equivalent authority. So I'm coming to the budget now, because probably most of you are not doing your research only for the fame, but also for the living, and you might be interested in how the budget looks for these individual fellowships. So first of all, for most researchers, this is probably good news. The applicants are not required to indicate the amount of the estimated EU contribution in the proposal. This will be automatically calculated from the information provided in Part A of the proposal. It will be calculated using the rates, allowances and coefficients given in the work program. The calculations are done based on the information you feed into the system when submitting the proposals. And the financial support for Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions individual fellowships takes the form of a grant covering up to 100% of the costs for the duration of the total fellowship. So the financing is based on a funding mechanism that relies on unit costs, where unit cost is a pre-calculated cost for the implementation of the action. And to obtain the total of the budget, there is a simple formula. You just multiply the value of the unit cost, as they are defined in the work program, times the number of units. The EU contribution covers the recruitment of the researchers. It covers also the research, training, and networking costs, and the management costs and overheads. The maximum amount that is paid by the EU is fixed in the grant agreement. And the unit costs are divided into 2 groups. There's on the one hand the researcher unit costs, and on the other hand the institutional unit costs. The money that goes to the researcher, the so-called researcher unit costs, are composed of a living allowance of 4,650 euro, a mobility allowance of 600 euro, and, if eligible, a family allowance of 500 euro a month. The money that goes to the host institution, the so-called institutional unit costs, are composed of the research, training and networking costs of 800 euro and management costs and overheads of 650 euro per month. Important to note that the living allowance is adjusted through the application of a correction coefficient for the cost of living according to the country in which the host organization is located. The adjusted amount will not change in case of secondments to a partner organization and in another member state or associated country. And also important to note is that the living allowance is a gross EU contribution to the salary costs of the researcher. Consequently, the net salary results from deducting all social security contributions as well as direct taxes from the gross amounts. The host beneficiary may pay a top-up to the eligible researchers from another budget source in order to complement this contribution. So finally, I would like to give you an example of such a budget so you can imagine a bit better how this looks. This is the example of a French researcher without family obligations who applies with a university in Germany for a 24-month fellowship. The budget calculation would look like this. The total duration of the fellowship is 24 months. So the living allowance is calculated by multiplying the 4,650 euro times 24 and times the country correction coefficient for Germany. This will result in 110,260 euro. Then there is a mobility allowance of 600 euro multiplied by 24. This is 14,400 euro. No family allowance is added as the researcher has no family obligations. And then the costs for research, training and networking come up to 19,200 euro. And the management costs for the 24-month and the overheads sum up to 15,600 euro. So all in all, the EU contribution to this fellowship will be 159,460 euro. And with this, I pass the microphone again to my colleague Juliane Sauer.
So, thanks very much, Sibylla, and thank you to everyone for continuing listening to us. I will now have with you a closer look at what your proposal should look like. This is what you can see on the slide, is the outline of the proposal. You have several evaluation criteria which you have to tackle, and this you have to do on 10 pages. You can see in the middle there, you have to provide the evaluators with a summary of your research proposal, and then you have to write about excellence, impact, and implementation. All this on 10 pages. This, you absolutely should respect the page limit, because evaluators, they are briefed to disregard any excess pages. A word to the evaluators. Evaluators are researchers in the field, and they will be assigned to your proposal according to your keywords and the abstract. However, you have a little bit more space. There's no page count for the CV for your scientific CV. And yes, there is a maximum of 5 pages for the CV. And of course, you also have to describe the capacities of the participating organizations. In case this should apply for your research project, you also have to write something regarding the ethical aspects. And for the global fellowship, you have to add here the letters of commitment of the partner organizations as previously mentioned. Let's now have a closer look at the 3 award criteria. Evaluators will be asked, and you will be asked to write your proposal according to these award criteria. The first one is excellence. It counts for 50%, and that means you have to describe, well, your research project, of course, and how far it's original and new, innovative, and in general terms, excellent research. You also have to mention your knowledge and supervision capacities of your host institution, and how far are they the excellent, the best ones for you to host your project. The second award criteria is the impact, and there you have to describe not only the impact of the fellowship on your career, the ideal impact or what you hope for it, but also on society, and you have to show in how far your research project, its outcome, will be important for the scientific domain, but also for the general society in terms of this, and you have to talk about your research also to the general public. You have to make clear why is it important that you, the taxpayers, fund this type of research project. This criterion counts for 30%. And the last one is called implementation. It does count for 20%. And here, in general terms, you have to explain in how far you are able to deal with a big budget and carry out your research so that it's hopefully is going to be a success. So in how far is your work plan coherent? How do you manage your project? For example, also when a risk occurs. And in how far you and your host institution have competences to manage a bigger research project. Let's now have a look at the timeline of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie individual fellowships. The call is open since last week, since 12th of March, and it will close on September 10th of this year at 5 p.m. Brussels time. This is very important. At this point of time, the submission system closes. All submissions for proposals are done electronically, and there's nothing that we can do or that somebody in Brussels could do. Once the submission system is closed, it's closed for this year. The Commission does not care in case you encounter a technical problem. It is your responsibility to upload all the needed documents before the deadline, 10th of September at 5 p.m. Brussels time. In October and November, the evaluation will be carried out, as I said, by independent researchers in the field. And from February 2016 on, applicants, that means your supervisors, not you yourself, the supervisors, they are the contact person, they will get first information if you were successful or not. We NCPs do not have this information earlier than you or your supervisors will have it. So there's unfortunately no need that you ask us before February 2016. Your supervisors will be the one who will be informed first. The first possible starting date for your project, in case you are successful, will be May 2016. In case you have other commitments in between and you wish to postpone your project start, this is always possible until the latest possible start date, May 2017. Now, we know that we provided you with a lot of information. This is only one step. More important is where you find important documents. There are two basic documents that you will need, really, and you will need to read this. We cannot do this for you. The one is the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions work program. That means it's the basic legally binding document which describes, again, the aim of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions and the outline of the fellowships. The other one is the guide for applicants. This is not a legally binding document, but it will give you the outline, it will give you all the detailed information on how you shall write your proposal and what exactly the steps for submission are. You will find these documents on a very important website, the so-called participant portal. The participant portal is the main entry point for researchers by the European Commission. You will find all the templates, the guide for applicants, the work program, and so on, and much more information on this site. You will find the link below. And you will also find there the list of national contact points. As the name says, there are contact points, so persons like Sibylla and I, in every European country and in many non-European countries. And we are there to help you. Our services are free of charge. You can ask us questions, and we are happy to help you. But as I said, they are there in each country. So in case you're listening to us from France and you wish to go to Italy, please do not contact us, the Swiss people, but contact either your French NCP or the Italian NCP. Check beforehand. There is a search filter. Who is the contact point in your country? The services of national contact points, we help you. We can answer your questions. We do not write your grant, of course. We cannot find you a host institution. This is up to you. Some NCPs in some countries offer a pre-proposal check. You have to ask your respective national contact point which kind of services they offer. Now a word regarding the success rates. I know that this is quite complicated, or it's a tough job to apply for such a fellowship, and you might ask yourself, is this really worth it? The success rates, of course, every year they vary. They depend on the number of submissions. It's impossible for us to say how many people are going to apply. They also depend on the panel. The budget is allocated accordingly to the percentage of submissions in each panel. That means, from experience, we know there are lesser submissions in mathematics, and so there the success rate is rather low compared to, for example, the success rate in the life sciences panel. The individual fellowships overall, they are very competitive, so good preparation is crucial. That means do not start writing the proposal 3 weeks before the deadline. You still might have success, but you will have a very stressful time. Throughout FP7, the success rates for the individual fellowships varied between 12 and 18%, or in some cases even more, in some cases less. So prepare yourself well, check with the documents, get in touch with your NCP, get help where you can. Further information and help. Again, we outline here, we point you to the participant portal. There is a general website of the European Commission about the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions. In case you found these individual fellowships, I'm not yet eligible, or maybe it's not feasible for me to do this year, check the Euresearch website. That's a service portal by the European Commission. Among other services, they also provide you with information about other European job offers. Then, in case you cannot reach your NCP or something's going on, there's also the inquiry service of the European Commission, and again, the link to the national contact points. The European Commission also finances a project called Net for Mobility. That's the networking project by all the Marie Skłodowska-Curie NCPs. We offer you help with an FAQ blog. You can also follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, or join us in our LinkedIn group. There you will be able to find more information around the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, for example, about information events in your countries or specificalities around the European and global fellowships. Euresearch, we are the Swiss people who help you with, among others, the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, but of course all other aspects of the Horizon 2020 as well. We are mandated by the Swiss State Secretariat for Education, Research and Innovation. We advise you and we inform you, we organize events, in some cases we connect even researchers among each others. We can help you, our services are free of charge. Again, we are aiming at the Swiss research and innovation landscape, so in case you're based in Switzerland, please contact us, or in case you wish to come to Switzerland and have a host institution here, you're more than welcome to get in touch with us. For all the others, please check with your national contact points. What we offer for the Swiss-based applicants or for people intending to come, a number of events. This webinar is an information event, but in case you know I want to go there and there with a fellowship, I'm eligible, and I want to know how to write a proposal, you can come to one of our applicants trainings. You can see here the list where and when they will take place. Please note that the date in Basel might still change. These events will be online on our website, and you're welcome to register. Again, they are aiming at people who are 100% sure they wish to submit a proposal this year. You have here now our contact details, and I can continue with the number of questions that we received so far. From the future host coordination could be somebody who was already the co-author of some of your publications. Yes, this is very often the case, and it sounds like a good idea. Ideally, you can show that you already established a network and that you already know how to work together with this person. There was a question regarding the status, or there were several questions regarding the association status of some countries. You will always find the updated list of which country is an associated country or a third country on the research participant portal. Then there was a question asking what's the maximal time of holding a PhD degree to be eligible. There is no maximum time. We know the individual and the global fellowships typically aim at researchers who already had maybe one postdoctoral period or just had their PhD. There is no rule. That means I saw cases where people did something else and they wrote a very good proposal and they already had their PhD for 5 or 6 or 7 years. It also depends on what you did in between. You might have been for 2 years on parental leave. That is not a problem, but you have to argue very well in terms of training and in how far this fellowship will contribute to your training. If you're already an established professor, the European fellowship does not really make sense in terms of training. There was another question regarding the host institution. Can the host institution be an enterprise? Yes, absolutely. If they carry out research and if you can show they have the good infrastructure and they are able to supervise you, absolutely, this might be even a plus for you. I explained the timeline because we did have a couple of questions regarding the timeline. This should be hopefully pretty straightforward. If you have additional questions, contact us later on. Some people listening to us are pursuing their PhD thesis in a Marie Curie ITN program. And there was a question if their secondment host during the PhD can be the future host organization for the fellowship. Absolutely. If this makes sense for your research project, then yes. If you can also show your network is already established, you might be familiar with the research culture in that particular country or even the language. But only do so if it makes sense for your actual, now new project. Then we had a question for individual fellowships in Switzerland. Does the correction coefficient of 113.1% apply? Yes, this is the current correction coefficient. The correction coefficient is fixed in the work program. It does not vary throughout the duration of the work program. Somebody asked if an applicant's training would also be available in the format of a webinar, because you like it. We like to hear that. Thanks again for listening to us, despite the technical problems we've had to face. At least for this year, we did not plan to do so. But we think that for people intending to come to Switzerland, we will be able to offer some kind of online support. You have to contact us for this. And we would also like to refer again to our list of events. I will now continue with the questions. There was a question, what is the next deadline after September 10th, 2015? Luckily, there will be a new call opening next year. There's not another call opening this year. This is the only opportunity you have for this year. But in case you don't think you want to apply now, we expect the next call for fellowships to open again in spring 2016, with the deadline in autumn 2016. We don't know yet for sure, but you have to check for the next upcoming work program to be sure with the dates. I think these were the questions for the moment. Please hang in with me. There could be still a couple of more questions. In case there are no more questions, we would like, just excuse us for a moment, we have to clarify something internally. No, thank you very much. We just found out there are no more questions. So in case there are more questions and yours was not answered at the moment, please don't hesitate to contact us or your respective national contact point. Thanks again for listening to us, and to everyone who's going to apply, we wish you very much luck, and we hope to have many successful proposals in the future. Goodbye.